Cincinnati transferred Dillon Mitchell. He's headed to St. John's. Riley, this is something that we had expected for a little bit of time now. It's finally official. What do you make of his fit with the Johnnies and Patino system?
So you could go back to when he first entered the portal. I said I was kind of out on Dillon Mitchell. I've been a believer the last 3 years now that he was going to realize his potential. I'm kind of walking that back some. I like the fit here a lot with Patino just because he's going to a system that got a two seed and swept the Big East titles with hardly anyone who could shoot. I think it's a system where you don't need to shoot. Just maul people on defense, force a lot of turnovers. And I think even if you're looking at last year's roster, it's so easy to envision him in that Aaron Scott role as like this movable chess piece who you can use to guard multiple front court positions. Scott was someone who was top 20 in the Big East in both block and steal rate. And I just think Mitchell's going to give you very similar defensive numbers. It's so easy to envision him just aggressively jumping passing lanes and you can switch him on ball for stretches as well. And he can get you some steals. Like he's just a very sound defensive player with his length, athleticism, instincts. And I think Patino will really help him lean into that. On the offensive side of things, I would guess he's going to continue to give his 9 points per game. I'm like, I don't really know what Ian Jackson at point guard is going to look like. I'm a huge fan of Ian Jackson's game. I really wish he was still a Tar Heel. He was my favorite player on last year's UNC team. A little bit bearish on excuse me, a little bit bullish on his ability to run the point. Because in theory, it's like, oh, you have all these good guards with Sellers, with Sannon, with Jackson. There should be opportunities aplenty for Mitchell to catch lobs or just do his work in the paint. But I'm also like, who's getting him the ball? That's my one question there. But I would guess he'll still give you his 9 points, 7 boards, do the dirty work, little things to that Patino like loves. I think he's gonna love those types of glue guys who will keep the defense at a high level as well.
I have two separate thoughts with the fit here because I do think Dillon Mitchell's skill set fits well in the Patino style, right? Run up and down the court, be aggressive, attack the rim with kind of reckless abandon, get out in transition. Like all of that
Hmm.
fits Dillon Mitchell's game perfectly. He's a versatile defender who can defend on the perimeter pretty easily, also protect the rim at a pretty decent rate. He's going to run the floor. You mentioned his ability to catch lobs and just be a real threat around the rim, attacking the rim. That's perfect for the way Rick Pitino wants to play and the St. John's team wants to play. Um, I have questions about the Bryce Hopkins, Zupic for Dillon Mitchell trio.
Hmm.
You trying to play one of them at the three?
Ooh, I don't
Or are
think
we like,
so.
all right, Dillon Mitchell, you're going to come off the bench, but still play your 25 minutes a game?
I would guess Mitchell comes off the bench. Hopkins might not even be healthy though. Like, do we want to for sure bank on Hopkins? It's a great contingency plan if Hopkins doesn't return to form.
So
Like,
I no inside knowledge here. My just the way last season went made me think that Hopkins was pushing it to come back and then was like, we're just going to portal and shut it down. I don't think he had, this is reckless speculation, perhaps. I don't think him missing time at the end of last year was totally because he was still hurt.
that's fair. I
And
guess
even
like
like
just like
even the start of next season is going to be 18 months out roughly
yeah, yeah.
from the ACL injury, and typically people are pretty okay by then.
I just don't like the vibes of shutting it down to portal to where like I thought Bryce Hopkins 2023 season was a stud. Could do a little bit of everything on the court, was the offensive engine of that Providence team. And I think even looking at his game logs last year, it's like, oh yeah, 16 points, 16 point, 19 points. Two of those games were against Rhode Island and DePaul. Don't put a lot of stock in that. That performance against BYU in his first game back ages very well to portend that he can become an impact player again. I'm just like not ready. I need to see it against some good competition for like a stretch of the non-con before I'm like, okay, Bryce Hopkins, he is back to that 2023 form. And if he's not, like at least you have a hard-nosed four-man who's played a ton of high-quality basketball, who's been on a couple good teams, not every good team, but a couple good teams who you know what you're gonna get out of him if Hopkins feels like a bit of a wild card.
We interrupt this sleepers video to tell you about an offer from Underdog Fantasy. Cart, you love Underdog Fantasy, correct?
Course I do. Can I have a moment real quick?
Please. Thank you for that. In fact, I'm going to cut you off because our listeners like when we keep these short and sweet. Underdog Fantasy. Sign up as a new user. Use promo code SLEEPERS. Get bonus funds up to $1,000, 50% of your deposit match. The NBA playoffs are rocking right now. I played Underdog last week with a Cade Cunningham line. I'm looking forward to doing it throughout the entire first round of the NBA playoffs, but there's more. You can place picks on golf. You can place picks on baseball. You can place picks on the NHL playoffs that are rocking right now. Join Underdog Fantasy, promo code SLEEPERS. Support this show so that we can keep bringing videos to you. Back to the video.
I'm fascinated to see how Rick Pitino tries to play this, because I think they're going to be best if one of those guys comes off the bench, whether that's Hopkins or Mitchell. It's probably Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you massage that? Unless you presented that up front, how do you massage that? How do you handle that? Or do you throw him at the 3 or Hopkins at the 3 and decide, like, okay, there should be enough shooting here where it doesn't necessarily matter? Because Ian Jackson, Sellers, even Hopkins, and Sanon are all pretty much better shooters than anybody St. John's had last year. So you're going to have more shooting.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it's not clunky, though, particularly when you're putting Ian Jackson at point guard when he has not played point guard, right? So there are question marks with this team where I think in both scenarios, St. John's can make the Final Four playing either way. Like, that's the upside this team has. But I think both sides have significant downside that could make this blow up in Patino's face. I trust Patino way too much to think that that will actually happen. But, like, there's a lot of variance here with how this works that before we sit on the court, I'm intrigued by.
I agree with you on that. I think I definitely lean toward it working out just because I like Patino's one of those coaches after the resurgence he had last year, and even looking at what he did at Iona before. I trust him to stack talent, even if it doesn't feel like the most natural fit, that he will eventually figure out what are the right lineups to play and the right buttons to push. And I think with Mitchell, he's someone who doesn't need the ball to make an impact, which I think Bryce Hopkins is more so you want to run stuff through him. He's best when he, gets to play out of the mid post. He can pass a little bit, like where you give him some looks and some touches and even let him go ISO. Whereas when I think about Ian Jackson, definitely needs the ball in his hands. Maybe that's not even true. Ian Jackson was pretty lethal as a catch and shoot threat last year. I don't think he is necessarily just like I think he probably wants the ball in his hands more, but he can slide off ball based on what he did this past season. So maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't know. There's part of me that could see, like, at least for stretches, maybe Mitchell complements both Sanon and Jackson better. I think Sellers is like the perfect third guard for those two, just with catch and shoot threat, plays really good defense. That's his role. But maybe like I don't know, you could figure it out situationally which one you want to lean on between Hopkins and Mitchell. To me, he just feels like a floor raiser. Like he's not,
Yeah.
you're not gonna the dream of Dillon Mitchell becoming a future lottery pick, that is dead. Like I'm sure we're gonna see him in summer league 2 years from now. It's gonna be, yeah, there's Dillon Mitchell. He might even get like a highlight dunk. Like there's a chance he'll be on an NBA roster one day. Like I've been watching, this is not to get too sidetracked, but watching the NBA playoffs and like the Milwaukee Bucks, and you see their roster, if like AJ Green and Kevin Porter Jr. are getting legit playoff minutes, I don't want to say it's impossible for Dillon Mitchell to be on an NBA roster getting real minutes one day, But I think the star potential he once had at Montverde, that's done. But I definitely think he can excel in a role for Patino here.
I think that may say more about the Bucks than than anything else too. Last thing here, if you had to project like what his impact would be next season, what is that for St. John's?
9.7 boards, 3.5 combined blocks and steals. I'm booking. I feel so confident he's going to average 9 and 7. Like that is what that is who Dillon Mitchell is at this point.
If he can do that and be a contender for Big East Defensive Player of the Year, I think that's a perfect fit.